Okay, I started the project by greeting the school and the kids in Sesotho, just to ease it up a bit, and I think they also appreciated that I tried to greet them in their language, ask them how they are, and then I asked a few simple questions about who likes dogs and who has dogs, and after that Gunther carried on with the rabies.
My role in the community engagement project was to explain to the children and the class what rabies is. When I asked the class if anybody knew what rabies was, to my surprise, nobody, not even the teacher, knew what it was. So that's when I realized how important our engagement project actually was. After which, I explained to them that rabies is a virus that dogs can get, or any animals really, which makes them aggressive and dangerous. And there's no cure for this disease at all, which makes death certain if it's acquired. So it was very important to explain that to them.
I showed them how to interact with their dogs, and I did this by illustrating how to or how not to treat a dog under normal circumstances. I did this by using a dog toy to illustrate this more practically and to make it more interesting for them. And it surprised me that a lot of them already knew that some of the things I was doing was not correct and some of the things that I was doing was correct, and they weren't completely clueless on how to treat their animals.
Okay, my objective was to explain the danger signs typical of an aggressive dog to them by using pictures and illustrations, because not all are aware of what an aggressive dog looks like. And it's crucial to know when to approach an aggressive dog and when to avoid it. I also had to explain to them what to do when being chased by an aggressive dog. And it was quite difficult for them to wrap their head around the idea of standing still like a tree.
I did Doggy Language 101. We thought it was important to understand the behavior, otherwise they wouldn't understand its reaction. So we showed them different pictures of different dogs with different body languages and asked them which they think is approachable and which are not. Because they were grade 7s, we tried to make it more applicable to them or practical. So for example, we asked them if they were angry, do they want to play with the ball? Obviously not, just like dogs. At the end they did very good in the exercise and they could say which dog they should approach and which not.
After the presentation, we divided the class into smaller groups of about 4 to 5 students and divided them among the 5 of us. This was mainly to collect the data and actually see that they understood what we tried to explain to them previously in the class. Out of the whole class, we concluded that about 20% of them actually have dogs, and some of them noted even though they don't have dogs, they actually interacted with stray dogs, which was quite interesting and also alarming at the same time. Furthermore, some of them said that their dogs weren't tied to trees and they actually have a big area to play, which was a good thing to hear. When we got back to the class, the teacher asked me how does he prevent his dog from getting rabies. I then asked the class to help the teacher, and surprisingly they said as one they must use vaccinations. That was good to hear because then they actually understood and got that from the presentation. Furthermore, in the smaller groups we discussed the 3 most important things about rabies: how to prevent getting bitten, what you do when you are bitten, and also to vaccinate the dogs. We tried to explain that in a manner that they would understand it, and even though they are only grade 7, we just wanted them to understand that so they can take that away from that day and go spread the word to their family members. For me it was a very good experience. What I took from it is firstly that there was a big language barrier. We expected that from the start, but it's difficult to explain something to a person if they don't fully understand the words that you are using. That's why we try to use multimedia to explain it to them. Also, I think a big problem in this is that there's a lot of, or a very big culture difference between us and them, if I can say it like that, because some of us are brought up with dogs, and we are brought up caring for the dogs, loving the dogs, and also how to interact with dogs. Where some of them, they are not brought up with the dogs, and a simple concept as how do they play with dogs are not as simple as it may seem for us.
Adding to what Philip said about a culture difference, I've also noticed that a lot of the students, or the students that has dogs, named their dogs Danger, and that indicated to me that they made a connotation from their dogs to danger, dangerous, or anything dangerous. And where we see dogs as man's best friend, they usually tend to see it as a dangerous animal. During this project, I realized how much we take for granted. For example, to have benches to sit at. Because one of the students had to mount a plastic chair on top of his wooden chair just to add a backrest.
What was interesting for me is when we walked in, I was actually expecting some ruckus and that they wouldn't really keep quiet and everything, but they actually did keep quiet and they listened to us and answered our questions, and they really did treat us with respect, and that was a pleasant surprise for me.
It was a good experience and a good outing for me. It felt like we really made a difference, as when we left they knew a bit more about rabies than before we arrived. So overall, the fact that it feels like we made a difference made the effort all worthwhile for me.
Although I agree that it was a very pleasant experience, I just think that maybe every group with the rabies project should be allocated a vet. That way we could go and vaccinate after we had the talk and really make a bigger difference.